southern Illinois, out in the middle of nowhere. And this place is fantastic. So we're gonna go check it out. It's a full-blown French colonial fort built in the 1700s. It's absolutely amazing.
We are at Fort de Chartres, and the first fort here was built in 1722. Another fort followed, but they were both wooden and destroyed by the Mississippi River. A stone fort was built in 1753, and it was occupied by the French until 1765 when it fell into British hands. The fort covered an area of about 4 acres. The walls of the fort were 15 feet high, 2 feet thick at the top, and 3 feet at the bottom. The main gate opened to the Mississippi River, while the back gate, which is now the main entrance, faced the Bluffs. What we see here today is a reconstruction on top of the original foundations. 6 buildings stood within the fort: a storehouse, 2 barracks, the commandant's house, the government house, and the guardhouse. Gosh, I am not really sure where to start here. I mean, there's just so much to look at. I just love these little nooks. I don't know what you call them. They're probably for guards. If you're new to this channel, my name is Julian, and I go to historical sites to see what they can teach us. And all the information that I'm giving you today comes from this site, from the brochure and from the museum here. This was the commandant's house. The commandant was in charge of this fort and establishing and maintaining civil authority. This one's higher because this one over here, look, it's got like 2 stone doorways. Look at those archways. That room down there is actually a wine cellar for the commandants. There were 10 French commandants here. The first was a man named Pierre Boisbriand. And those 2 doorways go into just this little room in here with nothing. No way in or out other than those 2 doors. Oh, well, this is kind of interesting looking. I don't know if you're gonna be able to tell on the video, but it slopes. It's sloping this way. Wonder if it was built that way on purpose. Boisbriand's first task was to choose a suitable site and quickly construct a fort. He completed a small square stockade with 2 bastions in the spring of 1722. It was named Fort de Chartres after the regent's son, and settlers soon gathered around it. He served as commandant for almost 7 years. By the 1730s, a second fort had to be constructed after the first deteriorated, and it was much larger than the initial fort. It held 4 buildings and 4 bastions. It's a fort built by the French. Because this whole area down here, it was settled by the French. I wonder if that's a well. I bet it is. The French first came to Illinois in the 1600s after they traveled here looking for a route to Asia. They didn't discover that, but they did discover the fertile land of the Mississippi River Valley, and they stayed. At that time, the French territory reached from Canada in the north down to New Orleans in the south, and it covered a vast area of what we now call the Midwest. Look, you know where we're headed. Right there to that corner. The ground is very uneven, so I'm sorry. But first, let's look at this window. Just a full-blown window. It's pretty big for a fort. Maybe it was for a cannon. Probably. And these would have been for rifles or muskets or whatever they had. And they are just all up and down. Everywhere it's got these, like they're ready for battle. Okay. Those stairs don't look too sturdy, but we're going up. Okay, this is my first encounter with wasps here today, and if you watch my channel regularly, you know I am scared to death of wasps, but I'm gonna do this anyway. Okay,
I hate wasps. I hate them with a passion. I'm getting the hell out of here. Okay. See what I mean? These little ports are everywhere. Ready for battle. What a beautiful, beautiful place. And seriously, this is out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm very surprised that they have preserved and kept it like this. There's a lot of people here though today.
These are the foundations of the West Barracks, which would have held about 75 soldiers that were stationed here. This fort could have accommodated a garrison of about 400 men, but less than that number were usually assigned.
The tree is so green. Look how green that tree is. Wow. We're gonna go in these two buildings right here. Every building looks open. Yay us. No peeking through windows. Not today. Okay, that is the King's Storehouse, and right now it's got the museum in there. And it was originally constructed by the French to store various trade goods and commodities being moved up and down the Mississippi River. It's very cool. And that is the guardhouse that was reconstructed in 1936 and includes officers' rooms, guard room, priest room, and a chapel and a gunner's room on the first floor. There's also a loft which was used for storage of trade goods. Cool. All right, let's go check it out. Okay, let's get back on the path. Oh, look at the door. I think the door is so pretty. Weathered and old.
All right, the King's Storehouse was a museum, and it talked about the history of the fort and the surrounding area. And one really cool thing that I wanted to show you is some of the original stones that came from the fort's defensive walls, and you can see some of the mason marks. By 1753, a new fort was built of stone. Both the previous wooden forts deteriorated quickly because it's very wet here in the spring, and the Mississippi River floods this area constantly. Also, stone was a much more permanent structure, and the French intended to stay.
Oh, we've seen one of those at Fort Scott before. That was where the soldiers rested when they were on duty because they had to work really long hours. And that's what they got to rest on.
In 1763, France ceded much of its territory in North America, including what is now Illinois, to Great Britain after it lost the 7 Years' War. British troops occupied the fort on October 10th, 1765, renaming it Fort Cavendish, and they remained here until 1772 when the Mississippi River caused a collapse of the south wall.
Right.
They temporarily moved south to another fort called Fort Kaskaskia, and next week we are going to go check out that site. One of the commandants here, whose name I will put below because I'm not going to be able to pronounce it, in 1736, he attacked an isolated Chickasaw village. He and 16 others were captured and subsequently burned alive at the stake. So being stationed here was no walk in the park.
Oh wow, look at that staircase. Okay. There's a room, I'm not really sure what that is. It could be the priest's room. Maybe it's the chapel.
Well, while I'm trying to work that out, let me tell you about the first criminal case in Illinois. It was tried here. A man named Perrault, who was the secretary of the provincial council, killed a drummer of the garrison by the name of Morton, and he killed him for impertinence on April 25th, 1723. And he was the first criminal executed in Illinois, and I have no doubt that that execution probably took place within the boundaries of this fort.
Okay, this is storeroom. I was a little afraid to come up here because I thought there'd be a bunch of wasps.
Agriculture was incredibly important down here. In the mid 1700s, they shipped nearly 800,000 pounds of flour down to New Orleans, and they traded for supplies and other trade goods that were stored in the king's storehouse for later transportation to northern outposts.
Oh wow, look at the roof. It's just logs. Very interesting. All right, what else is there to see in this building? I think there's one more place to go. Let's see what that is right there, that door. Oh, there's a bell. I bet this is the chapel. Yeah, this is the chapel.
The majority of the French soldiers who were stationed here were Catholic and would have heard Mass here every day.
Not very fancy, but wow, look at the windows. That's kind of fancy. Wow, look at those windows. Those are so beautiful. Those are the ones we saw from the inside. And then right next door here is, it says the Heart of Illinois Country Heritage Shop. It wasn't open. Shucky darns, that's okay. We can go spend our money elsewhere. Look here, these are the foundations of the East Barracks. We're gonna go up these stairs. Check them out.
That wooden platform is the ghosting of the foundations of this barracks, and it's also the home to a gazillion wasps and other flying insects.
So these are the East Barracks, and we saw the ones that were over there. So those would be the West Barracks. There's some more. I love ruins. I love foundation ruins. And oh my gosh, did you see the size of that flying insect? I have to leave. There's a lot of like wasps here. Okay. Whoa. I just absolutely love ruins. I love foundations. I love trying to work out what the rooms were and why they're shaped the way they are. Whoa, there's a lot of wasps in there. Okay, we're gonna get off this wooden structure. So the building in front of us is the powder magazine, and it's the only structure that survived throughout the history of the fort in various stages of repair and disrepair. It was restored in 2004, and it may very well be the oldest building in Illinois. Oh, wow. Wow, this is big.
I was able to find some photographs of this powder magazine. When the state of Illinois acquired this site in 1913, this was the only building in the fort that remained. The site was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1960 and was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1976.
Okay, so that's the government house. So it's the foundation and ghosting of original stone structure. Let's go see what this looks like.
The government house was where all of the officers lived and where all the civil business was conducted. The commandant, officers, and soldiers were tasked with keeping order in the area, especially with the Native American tribes like the Fox and the Chickasaw. When the British showed up in 1765, the majority of the French settlers relocated across the Mississippi River to towns like St. Louis, St. Charles, and St. Genevieve, which are all now in Missouri, but were then still French territories. However, the British didn't hold this fort for long. In 1783, Britain ceded what is now Illinois to the newly formed United States in the Treaty of Paris. This is the gate. This is the gate we came in, and it's called the Land Gate. Look at the ceiling.
Well, this place turned out to be even more spectacular than what I thought. I am so glad that I took the time to drive all the way down here. And there's lots of people here. If you look behind me, they're setting up for some sort of festival. So this place is pretty popular. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself. I certainly did. And as always, I will see you all next time. Bye now.